Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hussein. Kindly indicate if you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Good
All right,
afternoon.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Today's session on FinTech, it's the week 5 of JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship program on FinTech. Our topic for today is intellectual property protection of FinTechs. And we are having 4 mentors with us today. Mr. George Onyewichi will be joining us. Mr. Samuel Abu is already on the call. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are still expecting Mr. Chuma Kana and Mr. Adedamola Odubanjo. Those are our first. Okay, Mr. Adedamola is on the call. Sorry, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Adedamola. These are our 4 mentors for today. I'll quickly take us through their profile before we give the floor to our mentors to give us an overview on the topic for today. I am supposed to be the backup moderator for today. Our moderator is on the call, but I think she's on transit, so she'll take over the moderating any moments when she's at her destination. Kindly permit me to share. So as we all know, our profound mentor, Mr. George Nyongchi, is currently heads fintech engagement for First Bank and its subsidiaries across Africa and at its digital innovation lab, setting up and driving the bank's fintech strategy. George is a link that connects technology, business, and ecosystem partnership. He is at the intersection of product, partnership, and ecosystem building. He has led the tech solo of a leading commercial bank and has taken it exponential and non-financial products from idea to market and trade. He has led digital transformation in the client engagement processes for leading commercial banks, including one of the Nigerian banking industry president and account opening for corporate accounts and SME digital lending. His team has won numerous awards for powering growth of SMEs. He also provides advisory for Crypto Africa towards developing blockchain infrastructure and building the operating system for African businesses on the blockchain, and hosts sessions on blockchain applications to various industries in the African context. Um, we are so happy to he accepted the invite to join us today, and we look forward to learning from him. Our second mentor, Mr. Samuel Abu. Samuel Oluwaseyi Abu is an ambitious and astute lawyer with a detail-oriented approach to solving legal issues. He is an associate of Duel Ovia and Alex Adedipe, a boutique commercial law firm. Here he works primarily with the TM technology, media, telecommunication, and IP department of the firm. He is adept at providing advisory service to clients regarding their various transactions, objectives, and business undertakings. In the course of his practice, he has reviewed and advised on IP implications on creative contracts and equally advised on IP protection strategies for startups, such as trademark and copyright protection. He has been involved and practiced in a wide range of areas, including corporate and business advisory, intellectual property advisory, telecommunications, media and technology, and private equity. He's actively contributing to IP education and awareness in Nigeria through collaborative podcast sessions, social media, and speaking engagement. He's a lover of art, and in his spare time, you find him listening to music, exercising, and art gallery visit or writing fiction. Thank you very much for everything you're doing, contributing to education, especially the IP space. And thank you very much, Mr. Samuel, for joining us today in this session. Our third mentor for today is Mr. Chuma Akana. Chuma Akana is in the law firm of Chester Law LP. He specializes in technology, media, and intellectual property law. He's the bias for FinTech, financial technology law, and policy. He has over a decade experience advising clients, corporate and commercial law, financial technology, intellectual property law, merger and acquisition, and he is astute in private equity and venture capital transactions. Chuma has represented tech startups and other corporate clients on various cross-border transactions. Chuma is the founder of the Innovation and Technology Law Network, ITLAN LA, a network of tech lawyers and startups with missions to bridge the law and technology gap. Chuma worked as general counsel for 3 years in a top multinational company involved in international time. He was seconded to one of the two clientele on matters relating to also advice on several landmark fintech and intellectual property. Chuma is a regular speaker at seminars on internet, digital media regulation, insurance, privacy, equity, and finance, and etc. He is the champion of today, Mr. Chuma Akana, and our last Joe is an associate with Nigeria's premier commercial law firm, Chris Ogumbanjo LP. He works within the corporate commercial practice group of the firm, where he doubles as head of firm intellectual property. In addition to this, he regularly advises Nigerians and multinational clientele on intellectual property administration, real estate acquisition, and perfection projects, project finance, and regulatory compliance within Nigeria. Professional affiliations include the Nigerian Bar Association, Intellectual Property Lawyers Association of Nigeria, and the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators. Thank you very much for being on the call, accepting the invite, and choosing to come and mentor our students today, Mr. Adida. I'll be giving the floor to our mentors to start their talk for today. They are giving us overview of the topic for today. I can see Mr. Samuel is on the call, Mr. Adedamola is on the call. We don't have other mentors on the call, and our mentees attendance is very, very poor. So every mentee on the call, you can just minimize your Zoom call, go to your group chat, and make sure that you ring the phones of all other mentees to join the call immediately. I'll be giving the floor to Mr. Samuel. Mr. Samuel, you can start giving us an overview of the topic for 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Uzain. Good afternoon, everyone. Please, can you just confirm that you can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, sir, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, everyone. So I think first things first, as I was telling Uzain, thank you for reading out the profile, right? That's great. Thank you very much. But I'll just correct a few things in there. That yes, I think prior to now, the last time that I had to be on JIIPCC, as a mentor, I was at Duale, but currently speaking, I've had a transition into the games industry, right? So just to correct the notion that I'm still there, with respect to any content you're putting out there regarding the trainees at this point in time, right? But nonetheless, I'm very grateful to be given an opportunity to once again speak on this topic, right? I will try my best to speak on it as much as I can because I trust that other mentors will have invaluable, things to add in the course of the training. And lastly, please permit me, I already spoke with Hussein as well, that I may not be able to share my video at this point in time due to certain factors, right? But I'll make sure I'm available enough, and I'll also just drop a link to the what's it called, the presentation for you to just have a look at that while it's ongoing. Okay, so I guess I can share my screen, right? So let me see if I can
Yes,
do
sir.
that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So just give me a second. Let me just get this link across. Copy the link. Okay, so everyone, you can check the chat for the link to train. That should help. Okay, so now I can share this. When you can see my screen, please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, sir. We can see your screen.
Okay, great. All right, let me just make it this way. Put it in the presentation mode full. Okay. So I believe this is much more better, right? And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate.
Collect your account number.
Of the kind of work that we're doing, right? Please confirm you can still hear me. Just to be sure I'm not there.
Yes, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay, great. So first things first, we're going to just go is what is intellectual property, right? So intellectual property refers to creations of mind, such as your inventions, your literary work, your artistic works, symbols, names, and images used in commerce. And interestingly, IP is protected by law, and you have examples of those mechanisms, which are patents, copyrights, and trademark, which enable people to earn recognition or financial benefit from what they invent or create. And by striking the right balance between the interest of innovators and the wider public interest, the IP system aims to foster an effective and environment in which creativity and innovation can flourish. Right. So intellectual property can have more than one owner, right? It can belong to a people, it can belong to a person or a business. It can be sold, and it can be transferred. It allows you to make money from the intellectual property that you own. So I think it's just important that we give a clear distinction between IP as a concept and as a subject matter and IP rights, right? As a concept entirely. So intellectual property is basically the creation of your mind, right? When you bring forth something from your imagination. So there's this analogy I like to use. It was from a book that I once read that says that at for every point of creation, there are two steps, right? The first one is when it's in your mind, and then the second one is when it's actually brought into the physical state of matter, right? So you envisage at first, you think about it, and then the second stage to it is when you create it, right? And that's why people will tell you, you hear stories of artists like Da Vinci and the rest that they just dream and they'll dream of something spectacular and then they draw it down, right? The mere fact that they have it in their mind does not equate to the, it does not equate them the copyright because they've not drawn it on the medium yet. However, when it comes to IP rights is basically the ability, right, to exploit your intellectual property for commercial purposes or for personal purposes or whatever it is that you need to do with it, right? So you have the IP as it stands as a subject matter, and then you have IP rights, which now gives you the legal basis to exploit that subject matter. And that's why you can see that it's stated that, you know what, intellectual property can have more than one owner. So that's true. When two people come together to create something beautiful, you have more than one owner. I mean, you see people that release songs, for example. You see something, XYZ's feature XYZ, right? They are joint owners, right? Intellectual property can belong to a person or to a business. So as we go forward, right, because this is fintech, so as we go forward into the slides, you would understand how this is very, very important, especially when it comes to businesses and acquisition of their products, or even FDIs, foreign direct investment, right? And also we see that intellectual property can be sold or transferred. And so you cannot, there's a Latin maxim that if you studied landlord, you probably be aware of, that says never that quod non habet, that you can't give something that you do not have. So it only makes sense that you cannot transfer something that doesn't belong to you, right? So IP rights gives you the ability to transfer or to sell the IP that belongs to you. So how do you then confer this IP in the first place? We'll get to that. But now we're talking about fintech. It's just important that we have a brief history of what fintech is. So while this may seem like a recent series of technological breakthroughs, right, the basic concept has existed for some time. You know, early credit cards in the 1950s, they basically represented the first fintech products available. So instead of it going with your physical currency, right, you just had cards that you could use, your debit card, credit cards, and all of that. So from there, fintech evolved here to include bank mainframes and online stock trading services. You see, one beautiful thing about fintech is it's just technology. I won't even say technology revolutionizing finance, because if you're in the capital market space, for example, right, for those of you that you may have known how to explore capital market for a while, you see that there are complex structures in place already in the finance space, right, that you can tell that, oh, fintech is just coming in to make things a bit more, maybe a bit more easier, or maybe a bit more automated, right? So technology is just coming to make things a bit more automated. But the fact that there have been cards since the 1950s, there have been stock exchange since what, in the 60s. People have been exchanging what's it called now, virtual assets and stock trade, and they've been taking account of those things since what, the 70s. It tells you that, I mean, the technology has been there, right? Technology has been there. But when it comes to fintech now, it's just technology bringing to our forefront, right, the finance experience. So instead of it getting a broker, right, for you to be able to buy stocks on the NSE listing, because that's like four different steps. You could just plug onto one of the popular fintechs around that into investment. So why they handle the back end, right? Because those processes will still go on. Why they handling the back end? For you as a customer, it's just more easier because technology is that bridge. I mean, you can just click on, okay, this is what I want. This is the asset, or this is the stock value I want to buy. If it's Tesla, if it's Apple, if it's what's BUA, if it's Dangote, you just, your job is just to click on it, and at the back end, they still work with those finance structures anyway. So you can see that in 1998, PayPal was founded, representing one of the first fintech companies to operate primarily on the internet. And a breakthrough that has been further revolutionized by mobile technology, social media, and data encryption. So this fintech revolution has led to mobile payments, apps, blockchain networks, social media, house payments, options regularly used today. And again, that's an interesting data because now you see the fact that even on your social media platforms, you could integrate payments. I know, for example, before Twitter now became X, whatever Elon Musk wants to call it, you can start to call it tomorrow. That is 50 billion talking. So prior to then, I know there was a product where I think it was similar to what you call Cash App, but either way, the idea was that you could actually receive funds, with your Twitter account, just that transfer. But again, as I'll say, is that the finance structure has always been, it has always been, right? Even before FinTech came. What FinTech is just doing is that FinTech is not bringing it to bear. So it's bringing the end product to you, making it much more easier for you. So instead of you going through the hurdles of getting brokers, of getting investment, of course, investment advisors anyway, of getting someone to read, what's it called now, to predict, what's going to happen in certain industry. So instead of you going through all that process, FinTech, we do that, but makes it easier for you to just click and for you to analyze the product that you want to, work with or shares you want to buy. Now, FinTech, financial technology is just, obviously two words coming together. It's a cultural term referring to software, mobile applications, and other technologies created to improve and automate traditional forms of finance for businesses and consumers alike. It can include anything from straightforward payments, mobile payments apps, to complex blockchain networks. The term FinTech company describes any business that uses technology to modify, enhance, and of course, automate financial services for businesses, right? And it also includes mobile banking, peer-to-peer payment, automated portfolio managers, trading platforms, development of other trading cryptocurrencies, right? So having understood, what FinTech sort of means, and having that background as to what FinTech sort of means, then we can now jump into IP protection mechanism. So let's first explain what IP is, explain what FinTech is, for you to know that, okay, the finance structure has always been there, right? But the technology is just now integrating, what's it called now? The services, services, right? Because again, you will not be the one to, I'll give an example, right? And maybe before I jump into, this might be essential by the time we're going into the likes of patent. For some of you that may not be aware, that may not know about the payment structure, for example. So I'll just give like a brief overview of what that kind of entails. So you have a MasterCard, right? And this just lets you know that this has been for a while. The likes of MasterCard, Visa, American Express, they call them gateways. And to give that card, they call it they are the card schemes. Sorry, they are the card schemes. So prior to now, for every transaction, prior to virtual accounts in Nigeria, everyone uses MasterCard. Right? It's no issue. In fact, ATM came in, was now around 2006, thereabout. Yeah. And well, isn't it right? Yeah. But as at then, there was even a system, right? Because the banks would have to, get the cards for MasterCard or American or whatever it is, the card schemes, right? When they get it from them, they authorize it into that bank. And now when you go to your ATM, right, the same network that it works. So if you're using, so don't let me confuse you. Prior to then, the idea was that when you get a UBA card, for example, you could only withdraw on the UBA ATM. Then eventually you could withdraw, you could use a UBA ATM, you could use a UBA card to withdraw on an Access ATM. Now that singular action of using the UBA card to withdraw on an Access Bank ATM, that singular action is really a structure that the finance industry put in place, right? In such a way that by the time you slot your card into the Access Bank ATM, the Access Bank ATM will ask two questions. Number one, what kind of card is this? Is it Visa or MasterCard? If it's MasterCard, what bank the MasterCard issued this card to, right? If it is UBA, who did UBA issue this card to? Which is not going to be myself, right? So I plug in my PIN and I'm doing all of that. Then when I plug in the PIN, these three information, the ATM at Access Bank would grasp, right? And then transfer that information back to a network, to a payment network along to, what's it called, UBA. So by the time, now this is just a brief overview because when we're not going to payments, with respect to virtual account and mobile application is quite different, right? But this is just like a very, very skeletal overview. So you won't be surprised when you withdraw money on, what's it called now, on an ATM at Access Bank, right? And then before Access Bank gives you that money, so now the Access Bank would have communicated with UBA. When it comes to UBA, and then they confirm that, oh, UBA issued this card, it's a MasterCard issued by UBA to Samuel, then the money releases, right? And that way sometimes you have issues when you go to the ATM and then they'll tell you, issuer, greatly, right? There is no network, there's no communication. It's that same structure that you have when you buy stuff and I send you a payment with a Flutter, right? So you see, the interesting thing now is, ideally, before Flutter came, I would have to go to the ATM at Access Bank to withdraw. God bless the cost. Let's say the seller is actually using an Access Bank, so I have to first withdraw at Access Bank ATM. Then I'll go into the bank, right? Because mind you, I do not have a bank account with Access anyway, so I can't withdraw from Access. So what happens is that I go into Access ATM, I plug in my UBA MasterCard, I withdraw from Access ATM, then I walk into Access Bank and I say, oh, I want to pay money into XYZ account at Access Bank, right? And once that is done, the person at the other end, the vendor, sees the money. It is the same thing that the likes of Flutterwave is doing, right? So Flutterwave is saying that, you know what, instead of going to your account, that part where you have to click on pay by Flutterwave, that's your ATM in the real sense of the word. So you click on it, you type in your card details, that's the same thing your ATM collects. You type in your PIN, that's the same thing your ATM collects. But now, because it's on the virtual space, your ATM has cameras, your phone, the banks will now have access to cameras. Maybe in quotes, the CIA might. No, don't quote me, that's why I said in quotes. But the banks will now have cameras, they have access to your phone camera. So that's why they will send you a KYC, right? And they give you a code. Okay, please confirm that it works. And then when you do that, the same way I've explained to you, right? Flutterwave will carry your card details and they will first go to what? So if they have there's something we call the acquiring bank. So if the acquiring bank Flutterwave is working with maybe Union Bank. So the same process of that question that Access Bank would ask you at your ATM at the ATM is also the same thing that happens in the payment channel. So Union Bank will take the card details, take it to MasterCard, and that's what we call the payment gateway system. So MasterCard will then confirm and say, okay, we issued this card to UBA. UBA will now confirm that we issued this card to a Samuel, right? Once that confirmation is complete, money leaves. Now, when money leaves, mind you, it's a process I'm buying from someone. The Union Bank takes that money to the account that is tied to that Flutterwave link. The Union Bank looks at it that, oh, this is an Access Bank account. That's fine. Who owns it? Union Bank verifies, and then Union Bank tells Access that, you know what, so money is moving from this UBA to the Access Bank account. And while you're doing all of that, in what, in 5 minutes, 5 minutes is not 5 minutes. In 30 seconds, you receive your alert from UBA debits me from, and you the vendor get your cash. The reason why I stated this will not let you understand why instances of patents in the fintech industry might be difficult to achieve. Now let's look at our protection scheme, right? We have copyright, you have trademark, you have patent, you have industrial designs, you have trade secrets, you have graphical integration, right? So for copyright, to understand copyright, just covers artistic works, what you write, your commercial programs, your adverts. This is very key. So when your fintech is doing an advert, it covers things, right? When your fintech is writing content and doing blog, it's covered under this. When your fintech is, creating music for it's all covered under this, right? Under copyright. And it's also very, very important that as they do so, they leverage the necessary instruments which are going to look at going forward. Same thing for trademark. In fact, trademark is one of the most interesting ones when it comes to fintech, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Give me 1 minute, please. Just 1 minute, please. 35 seconds.
Okay. Apologies for that. Just have to quickly checking something. All right. So back to trademark conversation, right? So first off, copyright, like I explained. Then for trademark is a sign capable of distinguishing the goods or services of one enterprise from those of other enterprises. Trademarks, this association sometimes put on logos on their shirts and all of this. Then you have, so I think as I'm saying this, I'll just quickly explain. So one of the most interesting things for fintech now is because it's trademark, because what you're pretty much offering a similar service, which is financial service, but the way you're offering yours might be different. I don't know if you guys remember, but when Piggy started, it was Piggy or Cowrywise, yes. And why Cowrywise was more focused on investment saving. I think back then, as at 2017 or thereabouts, Piggy was just focused on saving, right? So you could easily tell, and that's why they had to trademark their logo, right? So once you see the application and you see their app, you can tell that, oh, this is Piggy's app. In fact, I mean, how else do you differentiate applications on Play Store or Apple Store if it's not those distinction between their logos, right? So you can, when you see a Piggy logo, you can easily distinguish this from a Cowrywise logo, right? I mean, that's the essence of trademark. And trademark do not just cover logos; they cover words, they cover, and even now, much more interestingly, they apply to colors. It applies to outline of colors. Thankfully, the BFA. So I'll also mention that shortly. But if you're familiar with the Trademark Act, there's also something that was brought into law this year. It's called the Business Facilitation Act, right? And it also made just a slight change, not even a slight, just a slight increment, a tweak to trademarks. So trademarks not cover colors, right? And they also cover the outline or appearance. So it's quite different from industrial design in the sense that for industrial design, it has to be an article, right? That you can pretty much feel or you can touch, except again the instances of GUIs, which we will get to, right? But for trademark now in Nigeria, it applies to colors and it also applies to the graphical representation of lines and appearance, right? So again, trademark is very, very important. If you have certain products that you want to push out to the public, it just makes sense that you put it on that trademark. So when you open your Piggy, for example, sorry, another second, please. So for trademark, like I was mentioning, if you have different products or different services under your product, it's just wise for you to trademark it. So if you look at Piggy again, for example, you see the words like, I know right now they've already acquired a bag and they changed it to Pocket App, right? So the words like Pocket App is trademark. The words like Piggy Flex is trademark. The words like not just those words that just shows that okay, this is a product under our product or it's a service under our product. Now, the next one is patent. So now patents are necessary rights granted for invention, right? And it provides patent owner the right to decide how or whether they want to do with their product. But however, there are just two major things with patent. Number one is that it is inventive. Inventive in such a way that anyone in that industry might not have thought about it. And that's why it's very tricky for the fintech space, because if you are talking about bringing technology to automate processes, the processes have already been in place, right? So you are not really changing anything as such, right? And again, for patent, it has to be something that you can reproduce on an industrial scale, right? So that's why it might be quite. In fact, in Nigeria, so far in my short experience, right, we've never actually had to patent anybody's what's it called, application, right? What we just do is we provide them with utility of software, utility of patent. And again, utility of patent is quite similar to what you have as design patent. And it's just that maybe because it's semantics, right? But by the time we look at industrial designs and how it has extended to graphic user interface, then you see that the thin line pretty much connects. But yes, generally speaking, patent has to be something inventive in such a way that it's not something that you'd have thought of. So if you're a pilot in that industry, it's not something that a pilot would have naturally thought of. So it is not a change in the way you do things, right? So, and again, the invention here does not have to be recreating or inventing something from the scratch. It could also be changing the way, it could also mean changing the way something is being done or the process by which something is being done, right? And, in the fintech space, one of the major advantages you have is you always want to keep your, your service flow close to your heart. And that's why you have the whole essence of your pitch deck and all of those things. So it's not essentially, most times you're not essentially patenting anything for the fintech industry. Them just be frank with you. I mean, there might be a contrary opinion, which I'm open to, right? But at this age and time, with respect to the way tech is going, you really not. The closest you can do is you can go with a graphic user interface, and that's industrial design. So that switches us back to industrial design. It constitutes an ornament, an aspect of an article. It may consist of three-dimensional shapes, features such as shape or substance of an article. So when people look at the likes of Coca-Cola bottles, Coca-Cola bottles are one of the most interesting industrial designs ever made, right? You look at the likes of the cars that you make, but when you look at applications, they are all source codes, they are all software. So what is that industrial design in there, right, that you can use? And thankfully, that's why you have it extended to graphic user interfaces, right? Your GUI. So GUI is also sort of fall under what's it called now? The industrial design, because again, this is what gives your users the experience, right? And that's why you have these roles they call UX, UI, user experience, user interface. In fact, one of the most interesting analogy I always use is the Apple and Spotify issue. So when you look at Apple's GUI, you can tell Apple's GUI. They have the red, they have the white, they stick with it, right? Then when you look at Spotify, for example, Spotify has the green and the black, and they stick with it, right? And then if there's any other feature that they want to have, most times it revolves around those colors, right? So if you
Sorry to
see
interrupt, sir. Hello, sir.
all right,
Sorry to interrupt. You spent like 15 more minutes to your time, so maybe you just have it in mind that you've extended your time. So
oh my God, I'm so
thank you
sorry
very much.
for taking up my extra time, but thank you very much for extending the time. All right, I'll try to be as quick as possible. Thank you so much. So for industrial designs, like I've mentioned, right, the colors, the lines, the shape, and that is why again you're hardly open to applications right now and see the same design, at least for the fintech space. Sometimes it could be, but sometimes hardly nah. So when you look at your bank applications, for example, you see the same thing. The banks, they follow a color, they have a brand that they work with, they follow that color, and they do all of those just to make sure that, okay, if it's orange, so if I just do this as a mental note for yourself, as I mentioned this color, just think about the banks, and then you might want to type them out, but I won't say anything, right? So if you open an application and you're seeing orange, and you're seeing white. Yeah, orange. I think orange and white. I don't think they use yellow, but orange. So do you have any idea of the bank that uses orange and white? Right. Again, do you have any idea of a bank that uses red and white? Then do you have any idea of a bank that uses purple? Yeah, I think they use purple. Purple. Yeah, purple and I think wine or something. But they have white in there too. Then of course everyone has an idea of a bank that uses blue. Thank you. Yeah, good. I can see that purple on the guys got it. Okay. The bank that uses blue, there's a bank that uses light blue. Light blue. If I say the animal they use, okay, I already said the animal they use, you guys already know the bank. So do you have any idea of a bank that uses good. Are you guys the one that has the animal? Nobody got the one that has the animal. It's blue as well, blue and white, but they exactly you get so this. I think that one is for. So these are the things that also influence the animal part, right? Would of course be much more appropriate for trademark, for example. But you can see that these are the things that also influence the designs and the user design and user interface of all these applications. So if we go into some fintech applications now, properly fintech applications. Do you guys have an idea of the one that uses green, light green and white? The one that uses like a lemon green and white. There's one that uses blue and white. Everyone knows that one. The one that uses light blue and white, right? And so these are things that, apart from the trademarks here, these are things that influences the industrial design of the application of those things. So you can see that that's one way that what's it called now, fintechs can do that. But the beautiful, I would say maybe the disadvantage of UIs and industrial designs is the fact that ideally you must have registered it before it goes public, right? So what I know that we've done in the past is when people come to us and they want to build their products, right, and the options are there, so we can just go through the utility of software, utility of patent route. So that way we already have an idea of the UI. So they send it, right? They send it and we send it to the registry, right? So they give us a mock-up of what the application is going to look like, the design of the application is going to look like, right? So that before the application is even going live on App Store, on Google Play, it's already registered, right? So most often than not, so this is just like telling you that, when you get to that point where you have a company that wants to release another product, just make sure that you do your designs registration before the product goes out into public, right? It's just easier, it's better, it's the route that you can easily take. And that's why most fintechs do not, except if they've done that, they do not, and they just stick with their trademark. So because for trademark, you know that, my logo and everything is there, and questions around the colors or the design of my interface will now fall down to, will now relapse upon the brand of the company, the color brand of the company. And now another interesting thing is trade secrets. So trade secrets are IP rights, and so because of time, let's just run through what's it called, duration. So for copyright, it's 70 years after the death of the author, and if it's joint authorship, 70 years after the death of the joint author. For trademark, it's 7 years, at least in Nigeria. When you register it is 7 years, and then you can renew after 7 years. For patent, it's about 20 years. I think industrial design is about take same time thereof. For trade secrets, there's no year. But for trade secrets, if your secret should leak, it is leaked. And trade secrets are basically IP rights of confidential information. And that brings us back to the concept around pitch deck and fintechs, because that's why most fintechs will always sign. They'll tell you, and if there's anything you want to speak with them, there's going to be an NDA, right? They have NDAs down to the employment contract, down to the contract staff that they work with, or contract developers that they work with, and all of those things. Now, for geographical indications just means tying, product to a region where it's from. So they are signed used on goods that have a specific geographical origin. Most times it relates to food. So you have the likes of champagne from France. You have like Agoin people. That's just an example of Nigerian, right? So what's the nexus? Not to bore you guys, but the idea is that every fintech company is always looking to evolve, right? And if you're using technology, you're always innovating. Financial institutions are looking to innovate internally and account on the slow changes in the regulatory space to maintain their dominant positions. Whereas tech giants and startups are looking to make a breakthrough in the financial sector by leveraging their expertise in technology to complement and disrupt the provision of services offered by FIs. So what is Access Bank offering to you? As far as there's a license for it, right? Your fintech companies will go for that license. So I have Flutter will go for any license right now. They go for PSP. And I think thankfully, because of the approach, and you must actually give it to Nigeria. I think Nigeria has one of the beautiful or most regulated fintech space in the world, right? And we're doing so great, we're doing so well. You have like of PSPs, payment service banks, where we even network providers can engage in financial services. You have likes of MMOs, mobile money operators. You have PSS, payments. Yeah, PSS. There's PSSP. There's PTSP. You have switching the licensing, and just a lot of very interesting licenses like that. And again, this is because the CBN are seeing that innovations are going in the tech space and in the payment space, and they have to be licenses to regulate those things. And that just shows you the fact that startups, technology companies are always looking forward and looking ahead to innovate. And if you're innovating, one of the best things you always want to have at the back of of your head is having to understand the IP you have and the IP rights that you have. So various IP rights may coexist in the same solution depending on the nature of technology and innovation involved, including number one. So now this is the nexus, the software code. For every product you build, it runs on a software, right? And software is just those written codes that you have. If you've ever, so if you look at the side of the screen, you can see that's sort of what it looks like at the back end. So you have the front end developers, the back end developers. So this is what it looks like. In fact, if you want to have an idea of this, you can go to Free Code Camp. You start doing this. When you go to Free Code Camp, they'll tell you you see how to use codes to write hello. I think it's hello world or something. Yeah. You see how to use codes to bring in cards and everything. But the idea is all those codes are all written words, right? And two things. So you can either protect your codes through trade secret. That's one. Everyone knows that this is our code, right? Nobody must leak the code out. So that's why you're going to sign a lot of NDAs, even with your staff. You're going to sign a lot of IP assignment with your staff, right? Because you tell them that no, as we're developing this code, nobody must know about it. Right? You're not necessarily going out there to protect it. Now, on the other end, because in Nigeria too, we operate like a closed system of IP rights. So when it comes to copyright, for example, there are those listed things: literary works, artistic works, sculptural drawings, etc., etc. So I know that I, for one, right, I've had to like do about 3 copyright registration for source codes, right? Because we had the company or the FinTech guy to send us the codes, right, for both iOS and what's it called? iOS and App Store, right? And we just had them put them in the portal and they'll do the registration for them, right? And the one important thing about doing that, it also helps with respect to registration now. Copyright does not need to be registered, but with respect to registration, one of the beautiful things about this is that it gives you that timestamp to prove. So nobody can come in the future and say, oh, so FinTech stole our codes. It doesn't make any sense because imagine if I've registered the code since let's say 2 years ago, right? That's already proof that I had this code with me and I was registering it already. Yeah, and again, if your codes are in a source, because the protection of copyright is it being in a medium, not just so yes, copyright endures in your codes quite right, but the registration makes it a bit much more easier to prove. Okay, yes, we've had this code written down for a while. The fact we've done registration on this code and all of those things. Secondly, you have the algorithm. So you have your AIs. So algorithm refers to a specific part of the software that contains a procedure or a set of rules for solving a specific problem. Right? See that set of rules, that particular code, right? Most times they would not actually register it because you see that particular one that makes it function like an AI, that particular code there is going to be a trade secret. And that's why you see the likes of, what's the name of this guy, Sam, OpenAI. There are some codes of GPT that would never see light of day, right? Because that's the defining code in there. The same thing for your fintechs. There are some codes that they will not even bother sharing with you, right? Just going to keep it as a secret source. It's that thing that they can tweak. It's that source that they have in there, right? That code is the changing is the end. Not let me use anything, but that source is the pivot. That code is the pivotal, source in quote in that product that makes it function the way it functions, right? They have the fact that they are always innovating, right? And if you're always innovating, it just makes sense that you exercise again your IP rights. And as you can see, not all fintech innovations may be eligible for patent protection, as it depends on the nature of innovation and the specific patentability requirements in the country where it is sold. So, like I've mentioned, when you look at the fintech space, the concept of patentability might be quite difficult, except if it's design patent, right? For patentability, because there's really nothing, you're really changing nothing. Like you're not really changing anything as well, right? Except again, you're bringing up a solution that number one, someone in the financial space have not thought of. And most often than not, it's not possible because again, when you look into, if you have the chance to read up about fintech owners, you would realize that some of them, in fact, the large chunk of them, most of their founding members would be people that have experience in the financial space, right, in the financial industry. So all they are basically doing is just basically bringing in the principles of finance into technology, right? And principles are the long-age things, so you can't start changing principles. The best you can say is like you want to change the procedure. But again, what you're doing is just using technology to bring out the same principle. So anybody else could do that as well. But it doesn't mean that you can always pretend. You can still pretend to. But it's just that it might not all of it will require pretend. Not all. Visual design, yes, like I already explained to you, this is also one of the part of IP protection for your GUIs. It covers a whole lot. The graphical representation, how they call it, I mean, tech guys, they call it mock-up now. You see how to see the mock-up of your product, how to see the mock-up of this, mock-up of that. That's where you have it, right? So all of these are your visual designs, they're all covered under industrial designs. Right now, the role of IP, so I think this pretty much covers most of the nexus. So for copyright, I did mention the fact that on your employment contract, you of course have to use an employment contract, use an NDA, make it clearly stated that whatever it is that the guys are building, they are building it specifically for the company, right? And in fact, one interesting thing again is if you have a chance to work with startups, there's something we call founders agreement, and that founders agreement is just basically stating that X, Y, and Z are founders. They want to set up this fintech company. X, Y, and Z will do all the work they need to set up the fintech company. X, Y, and Z expressly agrees to transfer all the IP rights to the fintech company. Yeah, so these are most of what we use. The role of IP again is essential. I think I'll just go into acquisition are the most important things I have to say because again, I'll be done shortly. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll be done shortly. Oh my God. Okay, just give me 2 minutes. So for acquisition, like I mentioned, if your company is to expand, if you are to get to your series funding, your property that you're going to work with is your source code, it's going to be your IP, you design the product, right? So that's all of it. So that's why when you're looking to raise as a company, as a fintech company, we always advise them to do a due diligence, right? Internal due diligence. Just make sure that apart from your accounting documents and all, just make sure your IP is secure. Because what else are you selling if it's not the IP? IPR and licensing, yes, this also works as well. You can try to license certain software, or you can decide to collaborate with people. So that way you have stuff like API, application programming interface, right, where I can link this fintech to the other fintech. Both parties will agree, right? Or I can try to give a part of my source code to work with, maybe with respect to how to give valuation for startups. If I build such products, I can license it to you to use for a while. It enhances investor business market value. Of course, it does. Drives economic growth. Innovation drives economic growth naturally. So yes, regulatory scope. You have the Nigerian Copyright Act, Trademark Act, Business Facilitation, Magic Protocol for trademark, Paris for copyright. Yeah, and with respect to other instruments, like I said, NDA is very, very key. If you want to go into any discussion at all, get an NDA. License agreement is very, very important. If you want someone wants to use your software, it's very, very key. Joint venture agreement. If two companies want to build a fintech product, this helps them to be able to ascertain, okay, what's the percentage of revenue or royalties that are going to be shared with respect to a fintech intellectual party, who owns what in the company. NCND is the same thing. For NCND, you see it most times with employees and contract staff. And then you have an IP transfer agreement. So these are instruments you can use for license agreement. You can stipulate how long you want it to be. If it's for 2 years, that's fine. You can stipulate where you want it to be at, jurisdiction wise. If it's going to be Nigeria alone, that's also great. If it's going to be Nigeria and global. If it's going to be Nigeria and maybe Ghana, that's fine. You get, so these are basically ways I could do it. But yeah, so basically that is, I'm sorry I have to just quickly do a rush, but yes, that's basically the role of IP in the fintech space. Very, very important. And I think I'll just answer the questions quickly that were given to me. So number one was with respect to balancing it. So right now, the instruments you can use, so you don't have to be so tied up with
No, sir, you don't have to answer the questions now. Hello,
right
sir.
now.
You
Okay,
don't
great.
have to answer the questions now. We still have the question and answer session ahead of us, so we'll take the questions then.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Sorry for taking
Thank
your
you very
time
much,
again,
sir.
but yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. It's really educative, and we love to keep listening to all the explanation you're giving. if not for the course of time. Amina is on the call now, the moderator for today's session. So I'll give the floor to her to continue from here. Amina.
Yes,
You
good
can-
afternoon, everyone. I apologize for joining late. Thank you so much, Hussein, for moderating up to this point. I hope everyone can hear me. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, for such an extensive presentation. Thank you so much. I'll be giving the floor to our second mentor for today, Mr. Adedamola. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Can everyone?
afternoon. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. So Sam has already given a very extensive presentation on the role of IP in fintech. So I'm just going to do like a brief rundown on, let's say, legal framework in Nigeria and the benefits of protecting your IP as a fintech or a startup founder. So we'll start with So we're going to start with trademarks. So basically, trademarks are regulated by the Trademarks Act in Nigeria. Like Sam mentioned, there was an amendment to the Trademarks Act by the Business Facilitation Act, and what that amendment did was it basically provided for service marks. So prior to, I don't know if anyone knows the difference between trademarks and service marks. So trademarks are registered in respect of products, goods. That's from classes 1 to 34 under the NIST classification. And service marks are for services. For example, legal services, consultancy services, financial services. That's class 35 to 45 of NIST classification. So trademarks are valid for a period of 7 years, initial period of 7 years, and then at the end of the 7th year, you have to renew to ensure the continued validity. And when you renew, you renew for a period of 14 years. So basically, it is the cheapest type of IP that like fintech or startups can go for. That's like the first thing they should always even try to get registered: your trade name, your logo, your services, your products, and all that. Those are the things that fintech founders are to look at the beginning. And also, we now have patents and designs. So patents and designs are regulated under the same act in Nigeria, the Patents and Designs Act. Patents are valid for a period of 20 years. So once you're able to show that what you have, the invention or the product you have is patentable, that it is new, results from an inventive activity, and you can industrially apply it, they would grant you a patent. The only issue in Nigeria is that the examination process for patents is not strict enough. So anybody can just bring something and register it as a patent, and the registry will accept it. So that's why most people are advised to make sure that like watch services to see that nobody's infringing on the patents they already have, of course. So a patent that is granted is always valid for 20 years. And every year you have to pay an annuity to the patent registry. And after 20 years, it goes into the public domain. So while you have your patent granted to you, you can assign it, you can license it to people, more or less make money from it. And then you have designs. Designs are, like we said, 3D user interface and whatnot. You can register them at the design registry and it's valid for a period of 5 years. And you can renew them subsequently for 2 renewal periods of 5 years. So basically you get 15 years for your design when you apply for it or when you get it registered. The next one we have is trade secrets. So basically a trade secret is that information that gives you economic advantage or competitive advantage in the market. And if it is revealed, it's going to cause some form of loss to the person that owns it. So there really is no regulation for trade secrets in Nigeria. So what people normally refer to is we provide for non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality clauses. You basically use contract law to protect your trade secrets. So copyright. So yeah, copyright, like Sam mentioned already, copyrights are valid for a period of 70 years after the death of the owner of the copyright, or one of the owners, or the last owner of the copyright, the last person that dies out of the co-owners. That's how long it is valid for. And for clarity's sake, you do not necessarily have to register your copyright, but for good order, you are advised to lodge it with the Nigerian Copyright Commission to make sure that this is like prima facie evidence that yes, you have your copyright in force, and to ensure that if there's any infringement, you can produce that in court to prove such infringement. So I'm going to just run through the benefits of IP to FinTech. So the first one is it helps you to protect your creativity. Basically, like anybody that is putting in so much money, time, effort into something, that is moving it from the idea phase to the market space, basically, it helps you to make sure that it's protecting your own originality, protecting your creativity. The next thing is that it gives you the exclusive right over that, the right of ownership, the right of to proceed against anybody that engages in an unauthorized use of your IP or infringement. So it also gives you the right to be able to sell, assign it to anybody you want to assign it to, license it to whoever you want to assign it to, as long as it still belongs to you. So the third one is brand or reputation protection. So basically, IP protection helps you to shield your brand against reputational damage. So like it basically helps to like combat counterfeiting or anybody that's trying to imitate you in the market space. Helps to distinguish your products from your competitors and helps to fight against counterfeiting as well. So I think the most important aspect of IP for me has to be that it's a source of revenue for fintech. Source of revenue, because you can assign it to a third party, you can license it to a third party. And last one is financing. So people don't realize that IP is an asset class and they don't pay attention to it. So once you have your IP, you can use that to generate like raise funds for yourself. You can use it as collateral. You can use it as collateral to secure loans at the bank. For example, your patents. Those are very, very valuable asset classes that would help you to secure loans, help you to raise funds, and ultimately scale. So basically, I'm going to conclude on this one that the importance of IP protection in the fintech space cannot be overemphasized. So stakeholders are constantly advised to seek adequate protection within the purview of the law in order to ensure that their interests are properly secured in every sense. This includes registrations, renewals, payment of the relevant annuities and renewal fees when necessary, and carrying out watch services to make sure that nobody is infringing on your intellectual property. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adedamola, for that insightful overview. Thank you so much. Now it's the time for our mentees to give us their presentation. So the presenter for today, if you're online, kindly start your presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I have a quick question. Sorry, I don't know if you.
Okay, sorry, there's a time for that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Sorry, just exercise a little bit of patience. We'll address, kindly paste it in the chat box, so we'll address it. Our presenter, if you're ready, you can start, please.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I'm so sorry.
you
Sorry
hear
for
me?
interrupting you. Can you you have 10 minutes, please,
All right.
so we can jump into the question and answer session.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. My name is Irene Duke. So I'm the presenter for today. Great. Hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, Irene, we can see your screen.
All right. Okay, so our topic today is exploring intellectual property protection of FinTech. So these are the table of contents, and I won't list them. I'll have to go on with the introduction. So financial technology, known as FinTech, is a rapidly growing industry that leverages technology to offer innovative financial services. And innovation as the basis of FinTech gives rise to the need for intellectual property protection. So the aim of this discourse is to explore the importance of IP protection for FinTech companies and how FinTech companies can safeguard their innovations and creations. So moving on, what is this intellectual property? So intellectual property refers to creations of the mind, such as inventions, designs, trademarks, and trade secrets. It grants exclusive rights to creators and owners, protecting their innovation from unauthorized use or exploitation. So moving on to the next. So what is IP protection basically? IP protection refers to the security of intellectual property and safeguard of intellectual property interests vested in creators and innovators for their inventions. So the aim of IP protection is to safeguard the interest of an innovator with regards to the various forms of IP. So moving on to the next slide. So the framework for IP protection. As we all know, every fintech company in Nigeria must consider national IP protection, which facilitates IP protection in Nigeria. This includes national laws such as Copyright Act 2023, Patents and Designs Act 2004, Trademark Act 2004. So moving on to the institutional framework, the following handle, sorry, a minute, please. Oh. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Sorry, in its institutional framework, the following handle registration of IP in Nigeria. These are the Nigerian Copyright Commission,
I'm so sorry. I think Irene has network issues. Can somebody from the group step in? No, it's one group. So someone should please take over the presentation since our network is faulty. Prosise Chuku, Dinchi Inyolua, Timothy, and Mr. Okay. Someone should please step in. so we don't leave our time running without doing anything. Okay. Mr. Okay, you can start asking your question. I think ask your question now so that before she comes back.
Okay, Amina, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And thanks to our mentors for the presentation they gave. I think again, it's a reminder of some of these intellectual properties in the fintech. But one of the things I didn't hear them talk about is the cost for this intellectual property, trying to secure them. They did mention a few agencies you can go just to register them, but in terms of costs, because one of the things I hear is the fact that you can use them for collateral again, which sounds something very interesting. So in terms of cost for the trademark, patents, and co, just to have an idea of how much it will cost to run through that process. Let's assume we are going to a legal practitioner to say, okay, I want to register my trademark. How much would the process cost, including the official fee you pay to whichever regulatory agency in Nigeria? Just to have an idea. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Okay. I will direct that question to Mr. Samuel. It seems like Mr. Ade Damola is no longer on the call. So, Mr. Samuel, can you please answer that?
Does Mr. Okeogene wants to start billing people now so quickly?
Not really, but again, some of the things you spoke about, they were very interesting to us. Some of us that really think. So maybe we'll look for a way to register them just to have a fee. So we'll know what to pay the our legal brothers on the call.
Okay, because I'll be frank with you, right? Sometimes the statutory fee is really nothing, but what you just tend to deal with is always the administrative side to it. So, statutorily speaking, for trademark, for example, right? You'd first of all conduct a search, then when you do your search, then you do the application. After you do the application, you want to make it, get on your journal. But statutorily speaking, trademark is just about, let's say, 50K in total to this point of receiving your certificate. Search, application, certificate. I think certificate is about 25K to about, just that to the point. But in the real sense of things, it's not 50K. Do you understand where I'm coming from now? Because it's not 50K in the real sense of things. But based on how much ideally you should pay, statutorily speaking, yes, that's the amount. Same thing too for copyright registration. That is also one of the statutory amounts. But however, if you want to embark on a trademark journey as we speak, right, from the point of, so I always advise people to just take it in two steps. The first step is to the point of you getting your letter of acceptance. And then the second step is now to the point of you getting your certificate. Sometimes for you to get your trademark certificate, you could spend you will spend well over 100K to get your certificate. To get the letter of acceptance, you might spend well over, let's say, 80,000, 90,000 thereabouts, right? For copyright is not well. The copyright is almost the same range, like well over 100 thereabouts. For patents is a little much more expensive, right? Because of the fact that you have to pay the service fee, to your lawyers. Because number one, you're not just filing; the lawyers are going to be helping you draft. Do you get? So that's why you cannot rely solely on statutory fees. I think statutory fees for patents is just a little over 45 thereabout. But if you are going to any legal practitioner, they're going to charge you for drafting, for making those necessary filings, and that's where the bills then begin to shoot up and up and up like that. You get, so but for trademark is your agreement, right? I said trademark. For trade secret, it's your agreement, with respect to your NDAs and the NCND agreements and all of that. But I hope that gives you an idea.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Okay, is that okay?
Yes. Amina, thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. So, Irene is still not back. I don't know who the backup presenter is. and if they can step in, or we can just continue with our question and answer session. Since all the group members, I think, participated in the preparation of the slides, and our mentor has already seen it. So we'll be taking his comments from what he has seen from the slides we sent earlier. Can you do that for us, sir? Mr. Samuel?
Oh, yeah, yes, I can. I received, it's just one I got anyway. Yeah, and I think they did a pretty great job, by the way, to everyone on the team. Let me see the names. Yeah, Favor, Emmanuel, yeah. And with respect to the best practices, okay, yeah, that's cool. It's just that I don't want us to be boxed up into just these 4 things, right? The agreements, the filings, enforcement strategies. There's also something we call managing your portfolio. Okay, it could be closely tied to IP audits, evaluating the assets and possible vulnerabilities, but also creating an IP portfolio is very, very important. So, for example, right, at the industry where I now do my operations, right, so we just try to keep tabs on all the number of assets that we have with respect to the games that we're building, and just trying to make sure that, okay, you have an understanding of all the IP components, with respect to that. So that's what your portfolio does for you. It's not just your IP audits now, because IP audits sometimes is just checking, okay, have you done any registration at all with respect to this product? Yeah, but when it comes to portfolio is now you taking the active step to say that, okay, for this product, what are all the IP elements we need to consider, right, to protect it? For this one, what are all the IP elements to consider for to protect it? It's more of a proactive step. I agree with timely IP filings. NDAs, of course, and the agreements, very, very important. Enforcement strategy. Yes, very, very important. I want to work with a lot of the commercial litigation team. So you have to have like a sound. One mistake that most tech companies do is that they will just, look at the corporate angle. They don't look at the commercial, they don't look at the litigation side to it, right? So they also have to really pay attention to that fact. So I believe that, of course, with respect to challenges, you guys mentioned the fact that, so for challenges, you mentioned the fact that there could be limitations at times, right? Say there's an existing public policy limitations is one example, right? With respect to, protecting so IP, so because you pretty much understand that if you have a patent or something, right, then the public requires you, maybe that's more tied towards a medical line. Anyways, I mean, on the public ground, okay, you know what, you need to reproduce, you need to give license to other people to reproduce this medicine, right? That's something that you also want to put at the back of your mind. FinTech innovation often to meet patentability requirements. Well, yes, like what's already explained with respect to the fact that there's been existing structures. So I won't say it's complex technologies. I just say, at least for patentability requirements, there are already structures in place in the finance sphere for a long time, for a very long time. So it might be difficult for us to start saying, okay, you want to get what's it called, a patent for building a fintech. Not really sure. But generally speaking, I think this was pretty good. You guys did a great job. And what consoles me is the fact that as you explore the space even more, you get to understand and note, right, the intricacies of this industry, of the IP space, not just on the Nigerian parlance, but on a global scale. For the questions, what are some of the best practices for providing IP when working with third-party vendors? Can I answer the questions now, or just?
Yes, sir, you can jump into that. Thank you so much.
Okay, so for third-party vendors or contractors, so if it's possible for you to have a trade secret, it's fine, because you don't want them to have an idea of what they're working with. And if it's a trade secret, then you can also rely on your agreement. So one thing you can do is you can either have it protected with respect to using a TM or whatever it is that because you're working with my company, you're working under our name and stuff like that. But if it's with respect to building infrastructure, right, building software infrastructure and all, it's just important that you put it in your clause. that everything you're building belongs to me, right? Everything you're building belongs. So you could structure it in such a way as a work for hire, agreement, and then just ensure that whatever it is, you have that, what's it called now? There's one schedule we used to put for intellectual property as assignment agreement. Yeah. It's just like a schedule. So you could just put that there. So what that schedule does is that it just explains the fact that between my company and this person, all IP rights I'm designing for any of the projects belongs to the company and all of those things, right? Because contracts are enforceable. Yeah. And the both parties intend to go into legal obligation. You've seen the offer, you accepted, right? I've given you consideration, I've paid you the amount of money to pay you. I've fulfilled my obligations on it, then why would you have to flout? You're part of the agreement. And what are some of the common mistakes that fintechs make when it comes to IP protection? Number one is they don't protect the IP. Let's be frank. They're always very excited to share information even before considering the IP. And thankfully now, because most people now understand the essence of an NDA. So yes, they do always enter an NDA before they share a pitch deck. And again, even in the pitch deck, they still also try to withhold some very, very pivotal information. So they won't share everything with the investors. They withhold it, right? They withhold it. And yes, they fail to do what we call an IP audit, for example, with respect to advertisements and all of those things. So you guys saw what happened with, what's it called now? I think it was Friesland and Sabino's. Something similar, right? Could happen to an IP to a fintech company. If they don't have any IP audit structure that says that, okay, I'll call it a framework, an advert framework, right? That shows that, before I do anything, I need to consult with other people, other creatives, and make sure that, if you have an agreement, what does the agreement state? To how long can I, use this content for adverts? With respect to other things like TMs, most people do not. Utility of software, most people do not. Industrial designs, they do not. So that begs the question that how would you want to attract investors if you don't want to, take care of treatment? And I think the second thing will not be the lack of awareness, but now I think it's getting better because it's always a little too late. It's when the investors are beginning to ask questions and not figure out, I've not done this, I've not done that. Not because they didn't think it was important, but probably they did not know. And that's why as an IP lawyer in this space, right, just try to make sure that people understand the importance of all these things. How can we balance this for innovation with the need to protect intellectual property? So I don't think how can we balance the need for innovation? There's always a need for innovation and the need to protect IP. I think it's just about revenue. Once people understand that if you build something very interesting and it can generate money from it, they would want to exploit that advantage. So, for example, copyright, you have economic rights and moral rights. Okay, just give me a second. So you have economic rights and you have moral rights and so for economic rights, you can exploit it as much as you want. So it just makes sense that, I think there was something that Piggy does now with respect to creating content. They work with one graphic artist and stuff, right? That's an interesting way to push your content to the public. So I'm sure the terms of the agreement to just state that, okay, both parties will probably share the IP, right? It belongs to them. They can both use it at any point in time, right? And at the same time, the IP is protected. Innovation is being driven with respect to marketing. That's one instance. The other instance could be with respect to a product. Two companies can come together to build a product, right, or to offer a service, and they would agree on how they want to split revenue. Right. So the idea that you can actually generate income from your IP is enough to encourage you to actually be innovative. All right. Okay. What's the question, please?
Thank you so much. It's not a question per se. I raised my house. I know you blocked through the last 5 slides of your presentation very quickly. That had a lot of content. Luckily, I followed the slide you sent. I've downloaded it already from Canva. But maybe if there's you still have a few time left, maybe you can just run through it a bit more detail, since we're not getting our presenter back, if you don't mind. If Amina approves of that.
I was going to suggest that too, because we have much time left, so you can continue from where you stopped there.
Okay, so there's a lot of content, very interesting things there. if you don't mind. Sorry for taking you back and forth.
So you want me to go to the last 5 slides? Let me see.
I can share the screen if you want. I have it downloaded already. Just to make it easy.
That's quite productive. So where does the house want me to start from? So that might be easier for me. Okay, next, I have the slides here. Okay, what did I think I stopped at the point of net plus. Trying to explain the upgrading event. All right, so you can share your screen. I'll just read from your screen. Okay, that's fine. But I'll be brief about it because I need to be.
No problem. No problem.
We've tried.
Yeah,
okay,
confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, I can. So let's go to, I think I just spoke about Nexus. I think the next part was about the importance. So that's just the next slide. Okay, yes, the role of IP. So IP, of course, plays a vital role in the global creative and innovative ecosystem. Yes, for individuals. Please go to the next page. I think there are some certain points I needed to highlight that I had to rush through. Good, for acquisition, yeah. So this was the part where I had to, that's what I was referencing in my conversation, talking about the fact that some startups do not know that these are very important, right? So if you want to invest in any startup, or any technology company, what I'm really interested in is the IP. And that's why it's that when people go through and they do their pitch deck and all, sometimes they get funding without even having a product. Yes, they're just going to build the product, right? And what that product to do, and what that product is envisaged to do, is what then drives the investment. But that is something that a white person can afford, not in Nigeria. Do you understand? Because the scale is never so balanced against you anyway. Right? So you just have to make sure you're ready and prepared for anything that might happen. So that's why I say that the investment, in acquisition of any fintech business leads to a number of specific issues, particularly pertaining to those of IPR, which is what mentioning that IP is among the most valuable assets pertaining to fintech businesses and innovation. So you have, you're going to be checking if it's registered or it's not registered. So you're looking at the trade secrets, you're looking at the copyrights, you're looking at the trademarks. Just wants to know that, okay, if you pick out a name from your product, right? So I mean, I would say some words now. If you guys use a number of products, I'll say some words and you can just put it in the chat, right? What you think those words are affiliated with, which product you think those words are affiliated with. It's fine. But just to limit it, I'm going to start with FinTech. So I'll be descriptive. Do you guys know any brand that uses butterfly? Color yellow, butterfly. Do you know any brand that uses the word flex? Do you know any brand that uses the word what's this word that these guys use? Life is good is very popular. Do you know any brand that uses the word give me a second. Life is good is very popular. I'm trying to see the likes of Rice Vest. Trying to see the word they use. But I mean, essentially is the fact that all these words that essentially speaks to the products that they offer, right? You just have to find a way to trademark them, to protect them. It's very, very important. Reason being because if a company is to acquire your company and they want to leverage on the product you are building, it will be difficult for them to use a word that has been trademarked by somebody else. I mean, recently we heard about the issue between Twitter and the use of X, and there are questions as to, why do you have X this, X that? But the beautiful thing about trademark is that trademark is in classes, right? So you have the service part, you have the goods part. And I remember then that when we register for fintechs, we register them under number one, internet, under technology and internet, and then under the particular product they're offering. So if you're offering a financial service, we're going to register you under a financial service and under technology. So that's 45 and 36, thereabout. Do you get it? It's just important that your company has all of this in place with respect to even your advertisement or your communications with other developers that has worked with you. You want to make sure that your agreement, especially expressly speaks to the fact that everything they've worked on, every software they built is for the company. This applies even all the way to the founders agreement, right? Because as at the point of acquisition, look at the life of Flutter. Now, if they want, when they want to acquire Flutter, I'm sure they had to look at the cap table. We call that capitalization table, right? And they look at the cap table and say, okay, how many guys do we have here? So you see the founders, and then you see those that give money to the founders. When you look at the founders, you look at the founders agreement. What the founders agreement say? Now, before we start this company, everything we do to be successful this company is for the company. Every IP we given to this company is for the company, right? So sorry. So like I was saying, with respect to founders agreement, yeah, it's just gonna state that everything that I'm building belongs to the company. So when your investors see that, they are comforted. So if as founders, that means that everything we've done belongs to the company. So if any founder should leave, the company still owns the IP in all the product that anybody has built. And that way it translates into your cap table. The founders are happy that okay, as far as these guys are on board, or even if they are not on board, it still belongs to the company. So if you decide to sell your company, you are selling all the IP assets in that company to your investor. And that's why today Jack Dorsey can't do anything with respect to Twitter. He can't even use the name, he can't use the logo, right? Because everything belongs to Twitter Incorporation, and Twitter Incorporation has been sold off to the other person. And of course, what about the foundation of Twitter Incorporation? The product itself, not even the company, the product, the Twitter product itself, right? The innovations, those source codes, those UIs, those features that we use. Like that's what brought the foundation of that company to what it is right now. Next slide, please. The API and licensing, right? So, like I mentioned too, license can be in form of fee, royalty, or profit sharing basis, and thus often right to produce or manufacture or product for a given period of time within a particular territory, right? So firms producing those tech products engage in licensing as compared to other channels such as FDI for indirect investment. So stronger IPR protection can reduce licensing costs and prevents greater market power to the license. So, I mean, what are the odds of Twitter licensing one of their features, right, to a social media company? Do you get? If they can do that, that's absolutely fine. Same thing with Instagram, right? If they want to set, that's absolutely fine. And same thing as well with FinTech. So FinTechs can decide to actually license a feature of their product to somebody else, right? And what you see is that they do that through, most times, they do that through API. So they tell you that, oh, well, we can have an integration agreement with you, wherein your customers can come in through your platform into our platform. And whatever transaction they process, we would have, what do we call, a profit ratio basis. So it could be 0.5% of how much they purchase. Do you understand? So this is what IP allows you to do, right? Because you own that product, you can decide how you want to go around with the negotiation, right? You can decide how you want to go around with the licensing fees. And again, you can decide how you want to go around with the profit sharing because you own the product. And that's what, IP rights gives you the access to. Next slide, please. So enhance inventor business market value. Yes. So if I want to value your company, right, as a fintech or as an inventor anyway, what I'm going to value is the worth of your inventions, right? So if I'm valuing the worth of your inventions, what happens in an instance where, okay, this is a very good example. This is a good scenario. If you guys have the chance to watch this movie, it's called The Current War. I was talking about Edison, right? I know back then there were quite a lot of inventors, and they used to go for this World Technology Fair in Chicago. And the idea was that then investors would give inventors money, right, to build a prototype. If the prototype works, you know you're already an investor. If the prototype works, anybody else that needs to start paying to you. So what that happen is, in the case of a light bulb now, right? Once the light bulb worked, right, and he changed it from what's it called, the pin mount to the screw bulb, because that's what Edison, you changed to the screw bulb where you can just turn around. Yeah. So for each of 1 unit of the screw bulb that he sells, the investor will get a royalty. If the investor is one that's going to sell it, Edison will get a royalty. Yeah, that's how it was even done back then. And that was just a way to increase his business market value, because it's going to tell you that, you know what, give me $10 million, I'll build you a product that you will sell 50,000 units at whatever price range you want to sell it at, right? And that covers for your investment and your interest. And I'll just get royalties on that for every other extra product you're selling. So that's basically what IP does for you as an inventor. So as a fintech person, it just makes more sense, right? So look at what happened with this. A typical example of this is, you would notice, is a Paystack and Stripe, right? So Paystack and Stripe acquired Paystack, but Paystack is still part of Stripe in this instance. However, they got some, I think it was about, was it 400 million or something? I can't remember how much they paid anyways. But that's just to tell you how beautiful it is with your IP. You can build something out of nothing and you can sell it for that much. Do you understand? So next slide. And I'm sure why they did that also was because Stripe recognized the fact that if you can't enter the African market space, Paystack has the infrastructure for us to get into the African market space. So they acquired Paystack, right? And they paid them the money for acquisition, and they retained them to still work in the back end for them, right? So that's the beauty about IP. So imagine if Paystack didn't have any of those things, didn't have any IP mechanism whatsoever. Stripe would never bother. Stripe would just go ahead and register the names on their behalf. Although I must not mention this, that when it comes to trademark, this is something we call passing on, right? So if passing off is a social action. So if a name has been what's it called now? If a name, I'm looking for the English word. If a name has been, should I say, adduced or connected to a particular brand for a long time, right? It will be ridiculous of you to not step up and say they want to go and register that name, right? Because everybody knows that this name is tied to this business or these services for a very long time, such that it's credible. So it will be ridiculous for you to say, okay, you know what, I want to go now and go and register in that business name. Like, come on. Nobody does that. And you know, the way Nigeria works, like it's for company registration, you cannot register a company's name if it's going to be similar to an existing trademark, right? Not just an existing business name or company, but an existing trademark, right? Because it gives it ridiculous. Because why would you be doing that? So imagine if, again, Paystack guy is not doing all of this, and Stripe just comes and says, you know what, I'm going to register a Paystack. It might be quite difficult for them to register Paystack, considering the fact that everybody has been Paystack operating in Nigeria for a while. But those are just one-offs. So in an instance where Paystack is just operating for 2 years, and the Stripe comes in and wants to acquire, and there's nothing to acquire on the trademark end, there's nothing to acquire on the IP end, maybe just the software code and all of those things, right? And it might not have been an interesting business here. They have made money, right? But what are the odds? Do you understand? So in a nutshell, it just basically enhances business market value of the inventor. Next slide, please. I think I should be. Okay, yes, of course, drives economic growth. In modern literature on economic growth, yeah, technology progress is viewed as a prime determinant of long-run growth. This technological progress is arising from activities of economic agents triggered in order to profit from the creation of new products. And see, IP also serves as the foundation of innovation for every economy. Artists and inventors are encouraged to transform their ideas into reality, invent and develop solutions, and also create new products and technology. And that's why you see that every day someone is building one infrastructure for payment, someone is building an infrastructure for receiving funds and all of those things, right? Because they know that once you do that, you can say, oh, I have built a product now, I want to raise, and money comes in and I raise and I keep using the product, right? But there's still that economic advantage to it, right? The fact that, oh, if I come up with something new, something very innovative that helps people, right? So I'll give an I want you guys to go and read up on. There's this company, I think it's South Africa, M-Pesa, right? In fact, they're one of the first companies to revolutionize payments in Africa. And what they did was they didn't even use the internet. Like what they used was just mobile network. All these are USSD code. That's what they used. And they had started this for almost 10 years, right? Since like 2000, still about, yeah. And M-Pesa so much revolutionized payments that right now there's no fintech product you want to build that can close down M-Pesa in East Africa. Forget it. There's nothing you want to build. There is nothing you want to build that can close down. Why? Because they've so much built the product. People have been so accustomed to it that the valuation of that company is now really high. Yeah, because what? They've innovated the payment system. In fact, it's so interesting that sometimes, if you remember when we were watching DSTV back in the day, maybe when you're watching Cartoon or something, you'll be seeing you can dial star something or use M-Pesa code to make payments for. That's to tell you how long they've been in operation, right? And what they just did was they revolutionized the mode of payment from just going to the bank and collecting cash to, simple USSD code. You get, and then now that okay, we're beginning to see influx of what's it called, mobile payments and simple USSD could pretty much solve any problem at any point in time. Okay, let's start XYZ and I'm done. Do you get? So it drives economic growth on a potential scale, an interesting level. And you can see that right now in the past, I think for the past 2 years, if you have a chance to read up on FinTech, so FinTech is a VC firm, and they do this annual report on how much investment have been made. I think Nigeria had about $1 billion USD investment made last year in 2022 in the fintech space. Nigeria had the highest. Africa received 1 point something billion. Nigeria alone had $1 billion USD in investment. Like that's to tell you the beauty of IP. But I mean, on a side note, I'll just mention on a side note is that those investments were not really coming to Nigeria anyway, because most of those companies were Delaware incorporated. So it's just like for sure. They'll tell you that one company raised 25 million USD, but that money is not going to Access Bank. It's not going. That money is going back to Delaware. Do you understand? But at least you can say that yes, investment is being made, economic growth is being achieved. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think pretty much that's it then. For the copyrights, like I said, there'll be some changes. I know currently there is an ongoing change for Designs and Patent Act. I think so. I can't confirm it, but I think there's an ongoing change for Designs and Patents Act at the moment, where your trademark act suits. Basically, they're like what Damola mentioned, 7 years and 14 years, then you can always keep renewing, that and that. And I also agree with him. Trademark is one of the easiest approach you can take. One of the easiest approaches you can take to register and protect any of, because again, all people will remember is your brand name, your product name. Yes, if I call a product, now people can tell me that this product belongs to this person, this product belongs to that person. Do you understand? So your brand name is very, very important. So you must be able to trademark it in the appropriate classes. Very, very key. And that thing is, as a business grows, as fintech grows, it's always advisable to also have a global outlook, right? So because if you want to expand operations into Francophone countries, for example, I would just advise you to register under OAPI. So OAPI is from ARIPO. ARIPO is like the African region, and I think International Cultural Organization also. It has some limited countries. Nigeria is not part of ARIPO anyway. They have OAPI. OAPI just caters to a Francophone country. So the beauty of that is if you are a fintech that wants to operate in, let's say, Cameroon or in Niger or in basically all other Francophone countries in Africa, you can just register as an entity, register under OAPI. So that way, that gives you, and the access routes to be able to exploit your trademark in any of those places, right? Same thing too. If you want to extend into Europe, you can go to the EU IPO, that's the European Union Intellectual Property Office, right? Or you want to go to WIPO, which is, the WIPO is, that's global and it's a lot more expensive. But if you are chanced, or when you are chanced to also work with a global organization, you could push that out to them, right? Guys, our brand is big, our brand is global. we can afford to register on a global scale. So we can afford to go through our registration. Do you understand? Because again, IP is territorial. Everyone knows this, right? But when you begin to have that global outlook as a fintech, it really helps. It gives you a prior understanding. And that's why you see that for companies, for the very, very, very huge successful brands, they always have an IP portfolio for every country that they are in. So if you look at the likes of Coca-Cola, the likes of Pepsi, the likes of Apple, the likes of Amazon, for every country they are in. So in Nigeria now, they have an IP portfolio in Nigeria. They may not give it to just one friend though, right? Because it can be a lot. It can be a whole lot. So you can imagine Amazon now and everything that Amazon does, everything it does, the product names in there, the designs in there, the content in there, everything it does, right? And it has to protect it in every country or in every major country that it operates in. That's the whole lot of portfolio to be managed, right? But I mean, of course, when you go that big, it's just important that you do all those. If not, someone in that same country will just start using your product name and they'll be expecting it anyhow to make money and other things, right? But yes, I think that's where I come to end it. For non-disclosure, yes, NDA agreements are very, very pivotal and important. License agreement. For license agreement, as I was going to mention, there are about 3 things you look out for: subject matter, duration, subject matter, duration, and jurisdiction. In fact, subject matter, jurisdiction, and duration. So subject matter, what are you licensing out? It's very, very pivotal in your agreement. If it's this product you are licensing out, state it clearly in your agreement. Number 2, which jurisdiction are they allowed to exploit what you're licensing to them, right? So is it going to be Africa? Is it going to be East Africa, West Africa, North Africa, South Africa, or is it going to be countries? That's very, very key as well. Or is it going to be on an international scale? And then thirdly, is duration. How long? 5 years, 4 years, 7 years, right? Very, very important that those things are stated clearly in there. For joint venture, you're building a product, same thing. You guys both agree that, okay, so for joint venture, 2 parties are coming together to build a product. It's your IP. Both of you agree on how much you're going to contribute to build the product. So if you're going to 50-50, that's fine. And you know, by the time I begin to look at these agreements, I know that, okay, if I'm contributing 50-50, then I can always lay claim to 50-50 royalty. But if it's going to be 60-40, then, I mean, if I'm contributing 60%, then expect me to split the bill with you. Don't expect to split royalty with you at 50-50. It doesn't make any sense, right? So if the cost of trademark is going to be 500K, right? Company A brings 250, company B brings 250, 50-50. So for every profit that is made by that product or that service or that company, right, both parties will just agree that we're going to split it, you know, at 50-50, considering other costs that is involved. That's what a joint venture agreement helps you to really work on. For non-circumvention, non-disclosure, most times, again, this one is always for employees or contract or third-party vendors that we work with, either way. But the idea is that because you've worked with me, you have no right to circumvent and then start doing same work for another company, right? You have no right to take these services out of this region. So if you're working with me to provide this service in Nigeria, for example, you have no right to start providing that same service in your home country. Do you understand? So if, let's say I'm working with a Belgian company, and we have a product that is built, right, or a streaming platform, whatever it is, a fintech product that we build, right, we'll give them this agreement. And so that no disclose and no circumvent. Just because we build this product together in Nigeria does not mean that you will not carry it and go and replicate something in Belgium. Do you understand? Because that means you are circumventing the agreement. So I will restrict it that for both of us, so this product will only be available to those in Nigeria for now. Do you get? For now, and you cannot disclose anything that pertains to it. And then for your IP transfer agreement, so for IP transfer, there are 2 things. Is either an assignment, which of course you assign for a period of time. For the assignment, you assign for a period of time. And again, assignment is not there's this word we use. It's is it on the exclusion of time or something? It always tends to convert. It's gonna revert. Yeah. So instead of doing an assignment, just do the transfer. If you intend to let go of your IP properly, do a transfer. So you're just transferring to the person If you want to do an assignment is just like a long list. So you can assign to this person that, okay, you know what, I assign all of my IP rights to you. Get for a period of what? Maybe a decade or 2 decades or whatever it is. I just assign it to you. Or I can assign it to you for the period of, so if it's a trademark, for example, I can assign it to you, and that means it will lapse at the point of renewal. Because trademark is 7 years. So if I assign my trademark to you, once it's 7 years, that's not that trademark can lapse. You have to go and renew. Right? But if I transfer it to you, then it belongs to you. All right. Please next slide. I think that's the end. Okay, yeah. So I think also another important thing to know is, well, I mean, as you read through and as you also get yourself accustomed with the industry you are in, right? The concept of IP now makes more sense. So like I was trying to explain to you, the open payment channel, I think it makes more sense. So if you are in the logistics space, for example, right? For any company, just try to understand what's going on there, what they do there, what are the IP elements that could go in there that needs to look out for. So luckily for me now in the games industry, there are certain IP elements that are quite interesting that I look out for. Yeah, and I say, oh, okay, this works, this works, this works, this works. This is what I need to look out for. The contents, the voiceovers, the music, the sound effects. So these are all components of IP that are put in place, right, to make sure that we have the proper IP portfolio for each of these products. Same thing for FinTech as well. When you understand the channels, you got so that, okay, this one is just a structure thing. No need for IP here. But for this one belongs to us. If there's an innovative way your company does something, you could also put it there, right, and try to protect that innovative way. You understand, bro? In all of that, IP is an interesting piece. Just keep reading, keep studying, and of course, it tends to make more sense, over a period of time. But yes, the role of IP is very, very pivotal, and very, very pivotal. It's pivotal. No point using very, very. It's pivotal to the fintech industry, right? And just want to make sure that as you go into the space, you're able to protect your clients and help them to realize that they can exploit, their rights in all of this. That's all from me.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. I'm glad we still had a little bit of time to spare. I mean, look at what we would have missed if we hadn't gotten back to the slides. Thank you so much, sir. I don't know if there are any live questions. I can see that Irene is back, but there's no time to take the presentation, and our mentor has already addressed the presentation. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hands or paste it in the chat box. And if you don't have any questions, we can close for today. Okay, I'll take that as a no. Thank you so much to our mentor. You did an excellent, I mean, I'm no expert, but even if you're hearing about FinTech or IP for the first time, going through that presentation a lot would have made one know so much about it. Thank you so much, sir. We'll allow you now to go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you to all the group members.
Pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so someone sent a message for my LinkedIn. Can I put it in the general group?
All right,
sir. Stop me doing this. I'm just gonna quickly send that now.
Also, sir, if you can share the slides through email, so we can always have it to look at, and we can also share it to absent.
Okay, I think I'll share it with your email, because you can actually just download it. I think Okay was able to download, but I don't know if he had to register to the download.
Do you have it? Can you share to the group or?
Mr. Yes, I have it. Yes, I have it. But yeah, I can share it to the group. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time.
So that's the LinkedIn. Thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure. So I'll put the link there. You can join.
All right.
Just send me a hello or something. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for your time and everything. Thank you. Bye.